What's up everyone, this is G The Hypersapien, and in this video it's how to paint realistic orc skin. I was going to do a painting video of how to paint Boss Snickrot, that sneaky green git, the green ghost. But I knew it was going to be a really long video because I wanted this model to be sort of above tabletop standard. Like I wanted to put a bit more effort into it, use glazing and stuff like that. And a lot of times people ask me how I paint my orc skin. What's the recipe, they always say.
How did you paint that?
Well, that's why I did this video, to show you how I paint my realistic orc skin tones. Now basically I use kind of like more natural greens that you would find in nature. So that bright cartoony comic book sort of green. I use sort of like more forest greens, or more greens you would see in nature, like sort of quite natural greens I like. And then I glaze in or add some human skin tones, like sort of pinks and peaches and reds and those sort of colours. But I did get from a sale from Gap Games, affiliate link in the description box. But basically they had a lot of these Panzer Aces cheap in a sale. So I thought I'd grab some of them. I got about 10 or 12, give or take. And basically I'm just going to experiment and try these out. But you can use any of the greens that you like. It's not really I use these colours, get this result. It's more showing you the techniques and how I achieve that skin tone. I use lots of different greens, so it's kind of like an experiment using these paints. But yeah, you can use any green really, any greens that you like. You can use this technique and add some human skin tones and see what you get. Now I will be using Citadel paints for the reds and the human skin tone, but again you can use, you know, any brand that you're happy or comfortable with. So I want to try out a lot of these paints in this painting video. I thought it would be a good opportunity to try out these colours. Okay, I'm going to put down the human flesh tones as well from Citadel. Also, I'm going to use some corn red from Citadel. So we have our greens and we have our reds. So we'll start applying this to the model. Okay, so these Panzer Aces colours, they look fairly thinned down. So I'm not going to add any medium or any water really to them. We'll see how we go though. But they are really thin and translucent, they look. But that is a really lovely looking green, this Japanese tank crew one. So I'm just going to put this all over the skin. Now I do have the head separately, so I can get to the teeth and all that stuff. And once I've done the teeth and the face, I'll glue this on after. But I am going to slap this on. This is definitely going to need a couple of coats with how thin and translucent the paint is. You can see it has some black or some dark shadows underneath. I did do a heavy white prime on top though, and even from the front a little bit, just to get all these muscles and all this skin. Just to make life easier, so I don't have to build up from a black. I get to build up from a white undercoat. But I'm going to go around and do all of this and then I'll be back. Okay, so with the face, I did use German Tank Crew, the dark green that we have. I just did a thin layer of that first, and I've built the Japanese Tank Crew on top. And it's left a little bit of the dark, which is quite nice. It's a little bit different than how the skin looks here. So now I'm going to add the corn red to the mouth. So because my paints are so thin, it doesn't really matter if it gets on the teeth. Try and avoid them, just so it doesn't build up too much. But just sort of aim it into the mouth as much as we can. Obviously because it's such a thin paint, it is going to get on the teeth. But I will sort of go around as well and just put some of this in between the teeth. Sort of like a wash consistency. We do want to build this up, so it's going to need a few coats. But we want to get into that mouth as much as we can so we can add some of that red inside. We will add some of this red to the lips as well, just so we can start darkening the lips a little bit. But as you can see, because it's such thin paint, it sort of goes in between the teeth, but it doesn't lay on top of the teeth too much, which is good, because obviously we're going to build up the teeth with browns and beige and bone colours. But yeah, we'll let that dry, then we'll do a couple more layers on top. Also, while we're working with the red, we may as well put some red in between the fingers here on Snickrot. So we want to put some on the fingers here. We'll put a little bit on the knuckles and the creases. So you just sort of play around and work out where you want to put the red. But we do want the red in some of these creases. Also around the fingernail, where the nail meets the flesh. We want to put some red there. Obviously, because this is such thin paint, you're just kind of working out where you want the red. So you want it in all these folds and creases on the skin. You go around and do that. We'll do some in between the muscles as well. So we put a bit in the muscles. So we want to go around the scars as well, just to make them pop, and also just the knuckle here. So the knuckles, and also whatever you call these in between your fingers. You know, these parts of your finger. So here, the knuckle, and just anywhere that it would have some texture and some wear and tear to it. So we'll do the same on the other hand as well. Just put a bit around the scars. Also, you want to put a bit where the dog tags meet the hand, so these areas. You're going to put a bit in the muscles as well here, so just a little bit here as well. But we'll go around and we'll do that to the whole model. So now we can see Boss Snickrot has his nice red lipstick on, looking like Jessica Rabbit. We're going to start layering a little bit of the Bugman's Glow on top. So you want to leave in the recesses a bit of that lipstick colour, corn red. So we want to build it up so it looks like lips and not lipstick, but we do want to leave some of that dark in the recesses. But he's got pretty good sculpted lips. You can see, you can kind of follow the sculpt. He has lines in between his lips. So you want to leave the lines or the recesses. So I didn't want to add the corn red up the lips that much. I wanted to focus it more on the front of the lips. So we can start adding the Bugman's Glow to the sides of the lips. But when you get about halfway, you want to stop there. So you want to start the Bugman's Glow and add most of the pigment to where the lip is. You don't want to overload your brush, and you just want to start lifting it up about halfway. So start again at the lip, and we want to start lifting it around halfway. But we're going to do the same to the ears. I did add a bit of corn red to the ears, so we're going to mix corn red and Bugman's Glow. We're going to start adding some around the inside of the ear. You don't really have to test this one on your finger, because it's quite a big space with a big gap. We want to start on the inside of the ear and just push some of that pigment up onto the tip of the ear, and also you can come from the middle of the ear and just start pulling some of that pigment down and around his ear. While it's wet, just move it around. You know, start in the middle and center of the ear and just start pushing it up to the tip and just start pushing it down. And then we'll let that dry, and we'll do that a couple of times. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with how that's looking. You can see it's sort of blended in with the green colors. Now I'm going to start adding some of the Cadian flesh tone. So you could put on just straight Cadian flesh tone, but I like to sort of mix a little bit of the new color with the previous color that I'm using. So this is a little less thinned out than the previous step, but we're going to go around and we're going to build up the Cadian flesh tone on top of these lips. Now you sort of want to do up and down motions with the lips, because you want them to look like lips that have, you know, been a bit cracked. A bit of wear and tear, like I don't think he's going to be using a bit of lip gloss, you know. His lips aren't going to be nice and fresh. So we're just going to follow around where we put the Bugman's Glow. This is just building layers on top of layers. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of Bugman's Glow left, which is good. Now I just have to turn the model around because it's hard to hold on camera. Yeah, I do have some Kislev on my palette, but I don't normally use that, and I'm not sure if I'll use that. It's sort of a bit of a sunny, sort of bronzy sort of flesh tone almost. It's just, I'm not sure if it will suit Orks that much. We'll see how it looks after I've done some of the Cadian flesh tone on here. But you can see now it's starting to come to life more. You know, it went from being Jessica Rabbit to sort of looking a bit more natural now. And you can see it sort of blends in nicely with the Ork flesh tones we've used. It looks a little bit more like real flesh now. But yeah, this is basically how I do most of my Ork faces. Obviously sometimes I change up the green skin tones. Obviously I'll use different green skin tones. I'm trying out these Panzer Aces, but you know, most of the time my go-to colour is Elysian Green from Citadel. I really like that natural looking green. But sometimes I use Deathworld Forest and some other natural greens. Sometimes I use Warflesh and Warboss and Skarsnik. You can sort of use what I've shown here and just apply your own colours. If you don't have Citadel colours, just use similar colours like a dark Schumann skin tone and a mid Schumann skin tone. And obviously I started off with the red inside the mouth and on the lips and just building it up as you can see. And yeah, you can sort of use any green that you like for the actual green flesh. Okay, so we got some Kislev. It's fairly bright compared to Cadian. Cadian's a little bit more rosy red. This should be fine. We'll just add this to some of the tips and spots. We'll do a few dashes along the ear here. Pick out some of those details, the folds. We'll do the same here. That didn't turn out too bad, just use it a little bit more sparingly and just add it to the folds and the recesses of the model. That's pretty much his face done. We might work on the green a little bit more as we do the rest of the model, but yeah, obviously the teeth need to be done. We'll start working on the teeth. Normally my teeth I use like Rhinox hide or a dark brown or a mid brown and build up to a bone colour. So we'll just go around with the dark brown now, just obviously apply it to the teeth. This is a little bit dark, so normally I use Mornfang brown, so I probably should have used a mid brown. So whatever you're comfortable with, dark brown and mid brown. Rhinox hide was too dark, so I'm just going to go around with Mornfang brown, and we're just going to coat all of the white teeth here. Paint is thinned down a little bit, but not as much as obviously we've been using. It's not like a wash or a glaze consistency. Try not to get it on the rest of the mouth if you can, you know, just clean it up with red or any of the flesh colours we've used. The teeth, I've done a base coat of Mornfang brown. I'm going to go over with Morghast bone, which is a Citadel colour, and then I'll add some Screaming Skull and just add that more towards the tips and the points of the teeth, the sharp end. Okay, I'm going to start layering up the skin. So I'm going to mix in some of my dark green with the previous skin tone. We're just going to add a little bit. We're just going to build up over these layers. So sometimes when I do orc skin, I will mix a little bit of orc flesh contrast in with Elysian green, and it sort of has this sort of colour to it. But we're just going to go around and we do that. And then I'll start adding a little bit of my light green back to it once we start adding more detail. It's skin's starting to look okay. It's starting to blend in with the face. So I'm going to experiment and just sort of mix some of these colours together and see which looks nice. So some of these colours are obviously fairly blue looking. We want to stick to more of our green colours for the green skin. We might use some of these on the trousers. So I kind of like this green, this weird looking green with our base colour. Sort of like a khaki colour. We'll start just glazing some of this. So we want to really thin this down. And I'll show you how we do a glaze. So we keep on adding some water to this. And basically the way you know that the glaze is ready is it starts pulling back into itself. So when it's paint, it sort of will stay in that spot. When it becomes more of a glaze or a wash, it basically wants to pull back in on itself because water obviously wants to stay together. So you can see it sort of comes back to the center. That's when you know you get into a more glaze-like consistency. Also when you're glazing, you want to get a bit of tissue paper. So you want to load up the brush. And before you touch it to the model, because that water is going to push all the pigment all over the place, we want to push it to a paper towel. You basically want to touch it until all the extra moisture comes out. And once we do that, then we can start adding it to the miniature. A lot of time when I'm doing orc skin, I want to kind of make it look like skin, like muscly skin. So I sort of go into one direction. No, not the band. I don't even know if I've heard the band. I've heard of the band. I don't know if I know their music. But yeah, I sort of push it to one direction. I'm not that happy with the colours. They're nice colours, but they're not sort of the type of colours I normally use on green skins. They're fairly similar, but I normally add a little bit of yellow to the green skin. But we'll go round and we'll just layer up this colour. But let me know if you're enjoying this video. I just wanted to sort of experiment, but also show you how I do green skin a little bit more advanced than I normally would do. But yeah, it does take a while to glaze and layer this up this way. But we're just going to go round and we'll just add a little bit more to this. But what I'm going to do as well is start glazing in just a little bit of corn red, and I've added some Bugman's Glow so it's not as red as we had before. It's sort of like sketching out in a way. The red was there to sort of stop me from painting over those areas, so I sort of knew which areas I wanted to be red. But also we're using really transparent paint, so I've kind of gone a little bit higher than I probably would like with this line here, but I can come in later on and basically go over this with green again. But we're sort of just sketching out the areas we want to sort of have that fleshy colours come through. And that's what that red was there for, really. It's kind of like a guideline of where I wanted the fleshy red colours to be. But you can see I sort of tried to blend these colours together a little bit. Obviously the green and the red isn't obviously a match. But we're just going to go round and we're slowly going to add some of this colour as well. As we've added the green layers, we've lost a little bit of this red, so we're just going to sort of glaze over and add a little bit more of our fleshy colours. We'll go round and we'll add these pinky reddy colours, and also we'll just build on top of that green flesh a little bit more.
Also, what you can do, it's a little bit awkward to do on camera, but we can go around and we can basically do lines around where the, but we can basically go around and do lines where the reddish fleshy human tones meet the grain. So we can just basically just bring out some of these details, and it just adds to the muscle. So it just help those muscles read better and just pop a bit more. Sort of like that. We could even come down here and do a few bits down here, just so you can sort of see where the muscles are. Just help them pop and read a little bit better. So you can see here and there, around where the red meets the green, a few dashes around here. But then if they stand out too much, we can just glaze thin layers on top of it until it sort of blends in together. But we use quite a bright colour first, just to establish where everything is, and then we can go over, if we need to blend it in a bit more, we can just glaze over like a darker colour. So we can go back to our original skin tone and glaze a really thin layer over here. And then you should still have these marks here because it's brighter than the skin tone underneath. But all this stuff will blend together once you lay over some glazes. But that's what we're going to basically do around the whole model. We'll just sort of start doing this. We'll start doing this and add in more red to the creases as we go, just to bring out the scars, to bring out all the in between the reds. You can see I've done it to the chest a bit here and under the neck. And then we can obviously add again those bright highlights here to the muscles. We just go around and we just do that. And it is okay to leave some darker colours under in the shadows, so we can even mix a little bit of our dark colour into our original skin tone. And just add some dark colours under his arms and basically where the shadows would be. If you look at the model from above, we want our brighter colours on top, and then anything you can't see really from above, you can add some of that darker skin tone to our original skin tone, and we can just glaze that on. We'll worry about that once we've gone round and we've picked out all the skin. And we'll do obviously the same to this hand. And then eventually we'll bring out these cuts and these scars with brighter skin tones. Just kind of like what we did to the lips and the mouth and the ears. We're adding in the dark to bring out the details. And then eventually we'll build up some of the brighter colours on top. Any questions, leave them in the comments below. Also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, G The Hypersapien, if you do want to ask me any questions. So I will do some more simple green skin videos on the channel eventually, but I just sort of have this model. I wanted to do a little bit more advanced techniques, but I thought I'd do a video just to show you how I bring out some of these details. Okay, so I've spent a few hours going over this skin, so you can see that it's fairly smooth, but if you look closely you can see there's some lines of a lighter colour under the skin. So I've tried to pick out the muscles like I showed earlier, and also I did a few lines of a lighter colour, and then I glazed over our original skin colour over the top. And also I have glazed in more corn red around the elbows and around the knuckles. And I have added our darker grain into the shadow areas more. Built that up. It's probably hard to see on camera, but I've gone in there and added our darker skin tone. You can see the skin is fairly smooth now, so I'm fairly happy with where that's at. And I've started to work on the scars. So I've just glazed in more of our corn red mixed with Bugman's, and I basically have gone around the scars, the edges of the scars, the recess of the scar. And just before I wrap up the video, the last thing I'm going to do is go in with our Cadian flesh tone and just add a few little dashes and details around the knuckles. I don't want a really thinned out paint here. I want the paint to be able to stick to the surface and make these details. Now this is a little bit hard on camera, so I'm sort of stuffing it up a bit, but I want to do just little thin lines. So if you see, I can just do these little dashes and lines just to bring out those knuckles and the details. So if you do make a mistake, you can go back in with your corn and Bugman mix. Now you want to have a really thinned out paint, but you don't want to overload the brush. So just wick it off on a piece of tissue or just your finger there. You see where the lines are a little bit dodgy. I can just go around here. It almost erases it. So you can go there and then you can start again and just do the more thick lines on top. So you can basically start again and you can do the lines like I did here. They're looking okay here, but I can sort of go over here, go back to where I was, and then let that dry and then do a couple of nice thin lines. It's a little bit hard to do it on camera because I'm so far away from the model. But yeah, I want to go around and add just a few lines like this on the knuckles. And I'll do the same here. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, we want to build up to a lighter colour for these scars. So again, I'm so far away from the model, but I want to just add the brighter colours. So I'm adding Cadian flesh tone there. I'll let that dry and then we can add a little bit of Kislev if we want, just to punch it up a bit. But I'm going to go round and just do a few more details here. Obviously I need to work on this one again. This one doesn't really have those little lines that I was showing before. So just a few dashes just to bring out the details. Now I do need to work under here a little bit more, but really I need to take the model off, or at least bend him like this so I can really get there. And it's a little bit hard to do this on camera because it's so fiddly and in an awkward position. But basically I did the fingernails the same as the teeth. So I done Mournfang brown all over the fingernails. Then I added more Ghast bone, and then just towards the tips I want to work in Screaming Skull. But also the model's going to be really like this. This is how you're going to see the model, so you're not really going to see the nails much anyway in photos or tabletop games. But that's pretty much it for this video. I'm just going to spend a few more hours working on the skin, working on these areas. So again, for these areas, I want to start adding a few details, a few lines. So we want to sort of add a few little lines like that, just so it looks like he's got some cracked elbow. He's been crawling around like a stealthy git, you know, on his hands and knees and elbows, and he's scuffing up his elbows and scuffing up his fingers, you know, all of that sort of good stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to show you how I do my orc flesh for, you know, this is more what I do for characters. If I was doing boys, I'd strip this back and do a bit of an easier version and just do, you know, like your base coat, a bit of a layer, maybe glazing later on. But I don't obviously put this much effort into just orc boys. But if you want me to do an orc boy video, I'm happy to do that. They're a little bit more basic. I'll do some more basic orc skin tone videos if you want. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Also, I'm G The Hypersapien on Facebook. Also, I'm G The Hypersapien on Instagram. Basically, G The Hypersapien anywhere.
So there it is. That's how I paint my realistic orc skin tones. If you do want to support the channel, there's lots of affiliate links in the description box below. I have Buy Me a Coffee. I have my PayPal if you want to, you know, chuck me a couple of quid. Also, I have merch like t-shirts, different designs for t-shirts and stuff like that. If you use them, I'll be super grateful. It helps sort of fund some of these projects. All of the money goes back into the channel to help do more videos, and I want to keep them improving and buying better equipment just so I can release better videos over time. But if you can't support me that way, even sharing the video to your friends who might be interested in this painting video, that's really appreciated as well. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you could please like, please subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video. This was G, the Hypersapien, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.